a rock-solid list of 10, then we will ask you to pick top 3 in order of priority. So these are weighted. The number that you press first on your keypad will have a little bit more weight than second and third. But before we go into the mechanics of that, we definitely want to debrief each of the ideas first, get any requests for clarifications. At that point, we'll ask the spokesperson for that specific team to clarify. And so we'll hold off maybe on exactly launching the polling at this point.
And just to clarify, what is up on these screens, which I see a couple of you having trouble reading them, we will read them out to you. And I'm sure beyond the third row of tables you can't read them. What is up on the screens is the compilation of the small group high priority outcomes and benefits. So this is, both of these are identical up here to each other. These are the slides for the process for identifying and advancing priority projects. There were 4 groups that addressed this topic, one in each of the rooms. Each of those groups produced or handed in 3, sometimes 4 top outcomes and benefits based on their discussion and on the worksheet that we asked you to fill out. These 10 items, if you think about that, that's 12 to 15 items per topic. These 10 items are those 12 to 15. A couple of them mushed together, not really synthesized, but where there were overlaps, and there were a lot of overlaps, those have been put together on a single line. Is that clear as far as that goes? We'll start going down this list. But it wasn't a lot of combining, because if you think about it, 12 to 15 down to 10, it's not that hard to look for overlaps and put items together. So this is pretty close to what you came up with, the compilation of what the 4 groups working on this topic came up with for high priority, most important, best ideas. Any questions about that before we start reviewing? Okay, so I'm going to go down and read this list along with the groups that came up with the items. As I read each list, I will ask whether there are questions for clarification. It's not a time to explore the merits of the item, I'm afraid, but questions for clarification. Those of you who either volunteered or were voluntold to be spokespersons for your group, be on notice that if there is a question about an item that your group came up with, we don't know exactly who you are, but we'll turn to you and ask you to offer the group's thinking on that item. Okay? So the overriding question here at the moment is, do you need clarification? Do you have enough information to decide how important you think the item is?
And so we are not pressing numbers yet. We're just reviewing the list, and we'll press numbers soon. I know that's the most exciting part.
And one other thing, which I should have said earlier this morning, everything that went up on the screens in the small groups will be preserved and included in the report of this meeting. It's all public record. This is a publicly noticed meeting. We have press here today filming, and there are others in the room at various times doing the same. Everything on those screens will be in the report, and as will your choices this afternoon. All right, so I'm going to read the first one and ask if it needs clarification. The topic here was the process for identifying and advancing priority projects. Not the projects themselves, but how you prioritize them. The first item, and these are in no order at the moment. We're going to ask you to pick the most important ones. These are not in any kind of order. The first item is an outcome or a benefit would be that the process identifies and considers multimodal solutions. Is that clear enough? Anybody need clarification? Okay. The second item, and here 2 different items from two different groups were put together. Maximizes existing resources and operational strategies, e.g. carpools, express bus, ITS, before major capital investments. And a slightly different version of that was focusing limited resources on the highest priorities. The first one of those was from Group 1 in Beach, and the other was from Group 1 in Tropics. Clarification on that? Actually, I think we'll be okay because one of those appears later, but I'm not sure they're exactly the same. But focuses, maximizes existing resources and operational strategies before major capital investments. Clear enough? Okay. Third one, the process aligns transportation and land use. Is that clear enough? Would anyone like clarification?
Yeah.
Yes.
So does that exclude water use?
Let me turn to the spokesperson first. G1 Beach, who was your spokesperson? Yeah.
Well, question, does that exclude water use? So it says just land use. There's consideration of water?
Based on the current practice, we have land use policies and land use plans. I don't know that we have any water use, they're developing water use scenarios. So based on what we know, transportation and land use, it's important that the priorities align with the land use that exists today. So you don't put out a priority that's in conflict with the existing land use for that particular location. You immediately create a conflict and basically nobody can make a decision because of that, and it doesn't get funded.
Clarification?
So would that include or exclude?
Exclude.
Water?
No. Let her finish.
Would it include or exclude his concern about waterways?
Okay, if I could add something based on my understanding of this, the question is, does it include or exclude water base? Water use is not so much contemplated here, but water transportation is probably subsumed under transportation, all modes of transportation.
That's why, yeah.
So there's a difference between land use and water use and water-based transportation.
Right, there isn't a current structure like there is for land use in terms of water. That all has yet to be developed. So no, it wasn't considered, it never existed.
Okay. Land use is the buildings and the activities on land. So. All right, number 4, mechanism to strengthen the region to get more dollars, creative and diverse funding, and including public and private partnership open to all modes. Does that need any clarification? Okay. The 5th one, improved communication between all agencies and parties, increased trust and transparency, and accountability structure. Focus on the inclusion of diverse ideas and facilitate the dialogue. Is that clear enough as far as it goes? Okay. Cost effectiveness of structure and projects, efficiency of all components of the system. Is that clear enough? Articulate,
Regional.
thank you, need, the definition of regional need. Is that clear enough? Because there's going to be a process for identifying and advancing priority projects. It should articulate regional need. Number 8, economic development and job creation, especially around modal centers, attracting national firms to the region, attracting tourism, reaching consensus across the region in order to reach agreement on funding options. And then a slightly more succinct version of part of that, connect and support major job centers. So any questions about that? Okay. Number 9, assurance of market-driven and technically sound projects. Again, we're talking about the process for prioritizing projects. Include priorities for all size projects, local and regional. Building community engagement and regional trust. That's all one item. Any questions about that?
Yes, I did.
Heard the voice, didn't see. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just interested on the thoughts on market-driven.
Can you use the microphone?
Sure. Just interested on the discussion on market-driven.
Okay. That came out of group G1? Yes. Yeah, we want the spokesperson for Forest G1. Yes.
Okay. It's basically data-driven.
Okay. All right. And then the last one, by achieving consensus on one set of priorities, it maximizes our opportunities to access necessary funding at the federal, let me read that again. By achieving consensus on one set of priorities, it will maximize our opportunities to access necessary funding at the federal, state, local level, and public-private partnerships. The example is San Diego, one regional voice, more local input into the regional prioritization process, i.e. a stronger local voice. Any questions about that? All the way in back.
Did you say this was the top?
Oh, hold on. Because I can't hear you, I'm sure others can. Sorry.
You listed 10 things there. Were they in priority?
No,
Okay, because the last one sounded,
no. We're asking you, about to ask you to identify the priority. Each of these was in the top 3 of at least one of the groups on this topic. Okay, any questions about that last one? Yes, sorry. Wait for the microphone, it's coming.
Not about the last, but on number 7, I'm not sure I was in that group. I was certainly in Trompic. I'm not sure, that certainly wasn't the statement that would reflect what was discussed in our group. In other words, it was to concentrate on regional need and not necessarily on local needs as well. So I'm not sure how that statement, if that's the way it's supposed to go. I know our spokesman's up there. I don't remember it saying articulate.
Were you on, in group G1?
I don't know what group I was in. My sheet was whisked away before I could identify myself.
You know, sitting down and looking at that, I went over to Larry and said, Larry, what the heck's that mean? So I don't know exactly how that came out.
But this wasn't our group, was it? Were you in the priority? No, we weren't doing the priority.
Was the sense of that item to focus on regional needs?
To clearly articulate what the regional needs are.
You were in that group, okay, we were
Okay, so I'm not sure if, let me see. The key there is that there might have been a priority item from one of the groups that was focused on regional need, not just articulated. Is that what your comment is?
I don't know what articulate means. Is that a sentence?
State, identify regional need.
It was our group, and we had a person who didn't understand regional and wanted that to be more definitely articulated,
Okay.
described.
Okay. So that was a request for information at that point. Okay. Yeah.
What are we trying to do? What
Right.
are we trying to do regionally? Let's identify that.
There are other items up there that get at the question of focusing on regional needs, so I don't think we want to alter it, but you would pick one of the items that talks about regional need and focusing on it, if that was one of your priorities. Okay, so, Andrea.
Are you ready? Okay, so we are going to officially open the polls. Give us one moment. So the polls are open, and what we'd like to ask you to do is pick 3 in order of priority. So again, the one you press first will be your number 1 choice, and you simply select the 3 numbers that correspond with your top 3 for process for identifying and advancing priority projects. If you should happen to want to select number 10, that's 0 on your keypad, just so you know. As you select each item, watch your keypad light up. So press the number with conviction, watch the keypad light up, and you'll know that your vote is being registered. And again, it's just to get a sense for the priorities in the room right now.
You'll instruct us for number 2. This is just the first one.
This is just, well, you press 3 in order of priority. So, yep, keep pressing your top 3. Yep, it's at your own, it's self-paced pressing.
What lights up?
Paced pressing.
What lights up on the right?
There's a little flicker of light on your top right corner. Excuse me, Well, some of them are top right corner, yeah. You don't have to turn it on, it's ready to roll. You just start pressing your top 3 numbers, you'll see it light up. Well, if you press the wrong one, then you just press, the last 3 you press will make the hit list, let's put it that way. It'll override your previous one. It was just kind of a test item at that point, yeah.
Is there another term we could use?
All right, has everyone had an opportunity to press their top 3? If you need more time, we'll give you more time, yep. If you need to come closer to a monitor to read, feel free to move about the cabin and just make sure you can see what you're reading here.
Yeah, that's right.
It's my dream job, I think, but no, I won't. Would you like peanuts? All right, has everyone had an opportunity to press 3 numbers? Anyone need additional time? Raise your hands. Additional time? Okay. And I'll give a 5 countdown here. So we will close the polls in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So the 3 that received the highest percentage of votes, we don't have absolute numbers up here, but we do have percentages, and there's a first and second that are really close to each other, and then a tie for third.
Yeah, so you can read the actual items. So item 8 got the highest percentage of 18%.
And that is articulating regional need.
Well,
Which
it's
is
actually,
interesting.
yeah, it's actually economic development, number 8. Yep, number 8 at 18%. Yeah, these are not the ones we look to. It's number 8. Yep.
Okay, sorry.
So number 8, economic development and job creation. And then it looks like number 10 got 17%, right on the heels of that. By achieving consensus on one set of priorities, it will maximize our opportunities to access necessary funding at the federal, state, and local level. And then it looks like number 9 squeaked in at 12%, which is your third top priority area, assurance of market-driven and technically sound projects. So those are your top 3.
Does anyone need those repeated? Okay, and so, my apologies, evidently I read this as 1 to 10 from left to right? Okay. Okay. All right, so that is the process we'll be following here. Again, 8, 10, and 9. Assurance of market-driven and economic development and job creation, consensus on one set of priorities to maximize opportunities with a stronger local voice, and assurance of market-driven and technically sound projects. So, those will be pulled out in the report. Andrew, you want to take us through the next slide? And I'll
So
come
let's
around
go
with
to
the microphone.
the next topic, which were group 2 in each of the labs, and this is around linking unique communities and protecting local character while strengthening regional systems. I'll read each one and pause for any clarification. So number 1, communication and collaboration across the region. That was also joined with citizens feel that they have a voice in the process. as well as a third combined item was engaging the stakeholders in each community early, often. So that was a three-way combo on number 1. And I'll just open it up. Are there any clarifications needed for the first item related to linking unique communities? Okay. Number 2 is identify common needs. So any clarifications needed for that item 2? All right, item 3 is interregional definition of what local character is. And that was combined with a second team's item, solution must be sensitive to the context of the region's unique communities. So there was some alignment there. Any clarifications needed for item 3? All right. Item 4, keep historic nature legacy protected, as well as land use characteristics. And then a third team, there is an overarching design which could be unique based on individual comp plans, and then there may be many layers underneath. CodeGS allow for more efficient and data sharing. With an overarching design, it would be more seamless from the user perspective, which improves customer experience. So those were three combined into one. Any clarifications needed for number 3? Can Council of Government Services? What is CodeGS?
Council of Governments.
Council of Governments, thank you. So are we in need of any further clarification on item 3? You guys good? Second?
Is it item 3 or 4?
4.
Yes, thank you. Item 4. And then let's go to item 5, which is incentives to do different behaviors and travel patterns. Any clarifications needed for item 5? Okay, item 6, better job at moving people instead of vehicles, spread demand out over various modes of transportation. Any clarifications needed for that one? Number 6. All right, number 7, political will. Any clarifications needed for that
Oh, we don't know what that is.
one? Okay. Number 8, funding. Some projects need a little bit of money to get a pilot project started. So do we need any clarifications on number 8? All right, number 9, recognize that it will not pay for itself, but that through economic development and growth, make it that it will get used and remain viable, understanding the overall return on investment, more than ridership numbers to attract better jobs for economic development. That's number 9. Any clarifications needed? All right, number 10, which is tie transit and land use to facilitate easier mobility through multiple options that improve quality of life. Any clarifications needed on number 10? All right, good job, you guys. These were abundantly clear. Way to go. All right, in a moment, PJ will open up the polling slides. We're not quite ready, but I'll give you the green light, as it were, and we will ask you to once again pick your top 3 in order of priority. The polls are open. Watch your keypad, if you would, as you press each number to make sure there's a flicker of light on the top of your keypad. Top 3. All right, do we need any additional time? Raise your hands if you need additional time. Okay, we'll give you some time. I share that our Collaborative Labs team, we take the polling devices home at night for difficult family decisions, like what's for dinner, what are we gonna do? Okay, we will close the polls in 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So definitely number 1 got 17% communication and collaboration across the regions. And then it looks like number 10 got.
Read all of those.
Oh,
'cause I
sure.
think that-
Citizens feel they have a voice in the process, engaging the stakeholders in each community early and often. So that's number 1, the combination. Then number 10 got 15%, tie transit and land use to facilitate easier mobility through multiple options that improve quality of life. And then number 9 came in at 14%. Number 9, which is recognize it will not pay for itself, but that through economic development and growth, make it that it will get used and remain viable, understanding the overall return on investment, more than ridership numbers to attract better jobs and economic development. So those are your top 3 for this particular one. As Raphael said, everything gets captured for the real-time record, nothing gets lost. So, good job.
Okay. Go to topic number 3, which was the mission, roles, and areas of responsibility of an ideal regional agency or coordinating structure. So, okay, the first item on the list is receipt of funds prior to distribution. Any clarification needed on that? Okay, item 2, moving away from operational improvements, i.e. sidewalks and minutia, focus on major projects and the regional system. True regional collaboration and not a replication or duplication of existing process and structure. And regionalism could be the bridge between local plans and the state. A regional ethic is needed across the entire region, operating according to unified principles. One of which might be consistent font size. I apologize. The people who put the slides together have done an incredible job in a very short period of time. So give it another minute to get where it's going. I just couldn't.
He just did that one.
Okay.
We already did that. There we go.
Okay. There is a clarification needed on number 1. Let's go back while we're finishing this up. Number 1 actually says recipient of funds prior to distribution. Was that receipt or was it literally to do with the recipient? It was Tropics Group 3.
Tropics Group 3 facilitator? Or spokesperson?
Receipt?
It's saying that the entity would be a pass-through funding.
Okay, okay, so the intent of item 1 was that the entity be a pass-through for transportation funds. Okay, are we there? Okay, thanks. And again, thank you. Moving away from operational improvements and minutia, focus on major projects, regional system, true regional collaboration and not a replication or duplication of existing process and structures, regionalism as a bridge between local plans and the state, and a regional ethic is needed across the entire region operating according to unified principles. Any clarification? Okay, number 3, strengthen the linkage between economic development and transportation, elevating conversations beyond operations happening at the regional level. Prioritizing transportation projects to regional economic development goals and programs. Need to make a link between jobs and money in the community to the transportation network. Bring people to jobs. When discussing multi-county MPOs, each county has a plan. MPO has to agree with local government comprehensive plans. There's a lot in that. Any clarification needed? Okay, number 4, achievement of projects that you might not otherwise achieve locally. Support projects across the region that aren't in our backyard, reducing parochialism. Clarification? Okay. 5, multimodal options for travel. Clarification? Okay. 6, create equitable funding structure. Any clarification needed? 7, identifying and advancing regional priorities and accountability. Okay. Greater public engagement in education, increase awareness. Plans must consider the concerns of citizens and the character of their local communities in order to gain support from the electorate. The big issue, and it's a big issue in Pinellas now, whatever is done to increase population density, transportation, the different communities want to ensure it doesn't change or destroy the community atmosphere they brought in. The major issue in any plan have to get citizens to buy in order to get funding. If you can't gain support of the majority of the population due to concerns about community, then the plan will not be implemented, or you may lose at the ballot box. Examples, beaches and community concerns due to high-rises. Okay, so greater community, public engagement, and education. With all that to follow. Any clarification needed? Okay, and number 9, see that we need high-capacity, congestion-proof transit with consideration for land use. Meet local needs as well as regional needs. Was there a number 10 on this one?
There was.
PJ? Is PJ still in the room?
There were only 9 that we received.
Okay. Okay. All right, so,
All right, so we will launch the poll in a moment. And again, because the font size is so small, if you want to get up out of your seat and move close to a monitor, feel free to do so. Polls are open, ready for your top 3. Any extra time needed?
Yes.
Raise your hands. Yeah, you got it. All right, anyone need more time? Raise your hands. All right, we'll close the polls in 3, 2, 1. And it looks like number 2 at 18%, so number 2 moving away from, sorry, number 3, see, you're keeping me honest. Strengthen linkage between economic development and transportation, elevating conversations beyond operations happening at regional level. Another team added prioritizing transportation projects to regional economic development goals and programs. Need to make link between jobs and money in the community to the transportation network. Bring people to jobs. When discussing multi-county MPOs, each county has a comp plan. MPO has to agree with the local government comprehensive plans. Very robust item there on number 3. And then it looks like number 4 got 14%. Number 4, achievement of projects that you may not otherwise achieve locally. Support projects across the region that aren't in our backyard, reducing parochialism. And then it looks like number 8 at 13%. Again, there's a lot of energy around all of these, but number 8 at 13%. Again, a very robust item here. Greater public engagement and education, increase awareness. A second team added plans must consider the concerns of citizens and the character of their local communities in order to gain support from the electorate. Big issue in Pinellas now. Whatever is done to increase the population density, transportation, the different communities want to ensure it doesn't change or destroy the community atmosphere they brought into. Major issue in any plan. Have to get citizens to buy in order to get funding. If you can't gain support of a majority of the population due to concerns about community, then the plan will not be implemented, or you may lose at the ballot box. Examples, beaches and community concerns due to high rises. So those are your top 3 for this one. All right, well done. Our last benefits and outcomes group which was around housing and funding a regional agency to coordinating structure. And I'll read each one and then ask if there are any clarifications needed. Number 1, ensure equitable and efficient use of funds. Everybody abundantly clear on that one? Number 2, process for identifying projects that meet a minimal threshold for a maximized regional impact. Any clarifications needed on that one? Number 3, more effective planning and implementation of regional transportation projects. Clarification needed on that one? All right, number 4, reoccurring legislative appropriation and local funding source. And a second team added funding through user fees. Do we need any clarification on that one? Number 4. All right, number 5, which is local decision making with a centralized authority basing decisions on localities, priorities, and a second team added 1 centralized office example, intermodal center on Cypress Street, and a third team added public and local governments and organizations and have one-stop location. So that's item 5. Any clarifications needed for item 5? All right, item 6, accountability. Finding equal voices on what we want, accountable voice for the plan, and accountable advocate for funding. And a second team added consensus with public is important. Item 6, do we need any clarifications for item 6? All right, item 7, one vision of what is being accomplished for a guiding coalition, speaking with one voice. A second team added ability to advocate, lobbying for priorities as a region, greater ability for funding. A third team added currently 6 MPOs and TBARDA, teeth for a regional organization as needed outcome. So that's item 7. Any clarifications needed for item 7? All right, item 8, which is potential for cost savings. Any clarifications needed for item 8? All right, item 9, need for smaller jurisdictions to continue to be represented. Clarifications needed for item 9. Okay, finally, item 10, clarification of roles and clear decision-making structure, clear authority, then reduction of redundancy. Any clarifications needed for item 10? All right. In a moment, I will open the polls. The polls are open, and we will ask for you to, once again, pick your top 3 in order of priority. All right, does anyone need more time? A few more? Okay. right, we will close the polls in 3, 2, 1. Survey says, looks like number 7 got 20%. One vision of what is being accomplished for a guiding coalition, speaking with one voice, ability to advocate, lobby for priorities as a region, greater ability for funding, currently 6 MPOs and T-BARTA, teeth for a regional organization is needed, outcome. And then it looks like number 10 got 15%. Number 10, clarification of roles and clear decision-making structure, clear authority, then reduction of redundancy. And then number 5 at 12%, local decision-making with centralized authority basing decisions on localities, priorities, one centralized office example, intermodal center on Cypress Street, public and local governments and organizations, and have one-stop location. So well done. Those are your top 3.
All right. In the report, you will see clearly what the top 3 for each were, and you'll see clearly the compiled list of top items. Just while we're switching slides, we have time maybe for 1 or 2 comments. Are you surprised at all by what came up as the top priorities? We could probably see some common themes across topics in those top priorities. Surprised, or is this what you would have expected? Any thoughts on that? Yeah.
Just one thought, in the collapsing of the information down to 9 or 10 things, there was a real theme in our group about, and you stated it first when you said we have clarity on why we're here. There was a real theme in our group about preserving the continued efforts of the MPOs in order to capture the dynamic nature of each one of our jurisdictions that are currently involved in planning.
I think you could argue that local voice is a theme.
And then overlapping or having that new process added on from a regional orientation. And I'm not sure I got the flavor in that in the way they were collapsed. Some of them contained small elements of it, but there was not one overriding principle, at least from our group, that I saw that contained that. That was absolutely a very strong element of the conversation. So if you comment on how that process may dilute some of those statements that were very strong in the group, but didn't necessarily look like they were represented very strong in the options we were given vote on.
I would say a couple of things. First, this is, as we said a couple of times, the beginning of a long-term discussion. Second, I think when you see the top 3 from each topic side by side in the final report, you'll be able to see those threads appear a little stronger than they seemed when collapsed as 1 of 10. As I listened to the results in each group, local voice and the dynamic, the local dynamic of the MPOs, as well as a clear identification and focus on regional needs, were both in all 4 of the topics. And so it's a balancing act. As you go through this, you're going to have to find the right balance, whatever that is. And it's not at all clear what it is at this point. That's part of the reason for this process going forward, is to explore whether there is a balance that can be found that will work for everybody or virtually everybody.
Yeah, just sticking along that same line, how many people in here are from Citrus, Pasco, Hernando, or Manatee counties? Not a whole lot. And if we want to make this a regional entity, you may even want to think about moving the next meeting into one of those counties and bring those people on board.
That's a good comment. Thank you, Stone. We don't have time to open it up for additional discussion. I was inviting just sort of comments on whether this looked like what you thought it would look like or not. So I'll take 1 or 2 of those, and then we have 2 slides of guiding principles that are a slightly different cut on the same thing. Mentioned, so I don't see any hands, or there was one, but briefly, please.
Yeah, from an expectation, I noticed 2 things. It seemed like there were 2 main themes. One was that we all agreed that everybody needs to look at it from a regional perspective versus a local perspective. The other thing which I thought was interesting is that it seemed like the funding kept coming up even in other topics that weren't focusing on funding. And, well, I find that interesting. Also, I think I'm the minority here in that I'm in the private sector, not the public sector. And as an entrepreneur, I don't focus on how I'm going to afford something until I actually determine whether or not it's investable and worth it. And then I explore that. It seems like on a public realm, we're always looking at that affordability issue before we even ask if it's worthy. So, how many people here are from private versus public? Private? Oh, so I'm not the minority, it's about half and half.
I will note that people will be able to draw their own inferences about themes. They may be slightly different than yours. But,
anything was negative.
Yeah. Okay, last comment.
I just wanted to add, I was in the Tropics 3 group, and we had almost none of our topics seem to have survived the culling process. And we had really rich conversation and really, I thought some solutions began to emerge from our conversation. One of the themes that came out in our group was we need to have a very lean executive administrative function and not to create a super agency in a region. And to use that by building on the existing MPO structure. And that doesn't appear to be emerging in the process.
Okay. It will be in the record, and I can assure you that the people carrying forth the study will be looking at that very carefully. And there are various levels of detail here. I think some of the broader level, higher levels of generality are the ones that tend to rise to the top in a process like this. But that does not get lost as a comment that's really applicable to whatever comes out of this. Okay, so we have 2 slides of principles. We mentioned earlier that principles and outcomes are not clearly distinct. There's a lot of overlap between those two. We do have the 2 slides. I'd like to go through and do the same thing we just did with the outcome slides with these 2 slides. Think of this as just one more avenue of input. As I listened to a lot of the outcomes, they seemed clearly principles as well as outcomes. So ensuring equitable distribution of funding, that's a principle. Strengthening the local voice, that's a principle. Focusing on regional priorities, that's a principle as well as an outcome. So we're not really trying to distinguish the 2, but they were 2 cuts at the same set of ideas. And we want to take a look at what came out of this set of discussions as well. So there's a lot more grouping in these. No net loss in resources for local systems. Retain the ability to plan locally, and funding alternatives. State policy should not disincentivize regional agencies, either in terms of planning dollars or buy-in. So any clarification needed on those? Okay. Align projects with land use. Emphasis on multimodal transportation. Local first and last mile is the connector in coordination with land use. Ford Pinellas has combined land use and transportation. This adds value, open, efficient communication regarding omnimodal transportation. Should move both ways. Planners looking at the innovative side and then also providing an opportunity for citizens to comment. Coordinate the vision with the citizens so that there is an understanding. Communication with different groups is key. Clarifications. Okay, the community will understand why we need to think regionally to benefit them locally. Managing input process to provide clear and consistent guidance to FDOT. Decisions on regional facilities being decided collectively, one community not dictating regional future. Ability to make hard decisions for the regional good. Ability to make hard decisions, use data and analytics to inform decisions, taking politics and emotions out of the decisions. Regional decision making while maintaining a local county voice while realizing our region is part of a larger system, resulting in a unified vision. Understanding of who we want to be as a region, who are we collectively, respect for local identity, but need for regional growth and tax base and economy. That was all grouped under the community will understand why we need to think regionally to benefit them locally. Remember to focus on the big picture. Flexible development focusing on, and I'm sorry, I'm running right through these. Any clarification needed on the one I just read? Okay. Remember to focus on the big picture, flexible development, focusing on the unknown future. Don't lead with a solution. Remain open to other ideas. Clarification? Create a stronger regional voice prioritizing safety, including complete streets to efficiently move people and freight, thus improving consistency with statewide and interregional plans. Make mobility solutions seamless across jurisdictional boundaries to minimize transportation friction. Clarification? Is that a hand? Okay. Compromise a little to achieve a lot. Mutual benefit, invest in the common good. Clarification? Transportation planning process needs to be shortened. People's perspectives are much shorter. Nimble, reliable, inclusive, dependable, safety, knowledge-based, provide options for all to provide greater accessibility. Clarification? Smarter connectivity between school buses and transit. Transit can serve school systems as well. Clarification? Economic development and impact. Use transit to reinforce activity centers, protection of cultural assets, use data to identify and organize major activity centers in the region, involve the community to tell where you want to encourage density. Regional economic development, big picture look at the region, define regions by what is truly regional, support for jobs and economic development as well as quality of life. So it's a balancing principle, economic development and impact. Better mobility for all, health in all policies, normally looked at after the fact. Health crosses many topics. Make sure health is a priority when making decisions, linking the transportation disadvantaged, a process that is transparent and also well communicated, sustainable and equitable. Okay, there's a lot in some of those, but it would still be useful to have a sense of which ones you think rise to the top. Andrea, I don't know which button to push. So get ready to push your buttons. There's got to be a better phrase than that, too.
Polls are open. Top three.
Our thanks to staff who worked while you were having lunch to sort of group these and the earlier items as well. That was quite a challenge. Anyone need another moment or two? Okay. Does anyone still need additional time? Okay, polls are closed. Okay, it looks like number 9 with 20% was the first one, economic development and impact. Use transit to reinforce activity centers, protection of cultural assets, use data to identify major activity centers in the region, involve the community to tell where you want to encourage density. Regional economic development, big picture look at the region, define regions and what's truly regional, support for jobs and economic development as well as quality. So that was the highest one. There are 2 at 14%, 2 and 3. Align projects with land use, with an emphasis on multimodal transportation, and the community will understand, which I think the community needs to understand, why we need to think regionally to benefit them locally. So those are the top 3, if you like, 20% and 2 at 14%. Okay, let's go to the next slide, and we'll try and go through these pretty quickly. And again, these are in no particular order. They just collapsed down to 20 because the groups weren't just focusing on their own topics. Agreed upon metrics of return on investment, measurement of project value, cost effectiveness, measurable and achievable outcomes. Any clarifications? Okay. Long-term view of planning goals and objectives. Short-term decisions should support long-term goals and objectives. Sustainable growth, financially into the future, maintenance of system, addressing the backlog, financial accountability over the long run, the need for a consensus of what is a sustainable system. With a long view of planning objectives and goals. Any clarification? Multimodalism, use a transparent process to develop technically sound, cost-feasible, and market-driven initiatives that include revitalization of existing infrastructure with flexible technology improvements that incorporate all modes, including freight. Any clarification? Okay. More robust public involvement, transparency. The end thing that does have to be communicated to the public is to communicate the benefit of planning. Principles should be based on economic development. Land, labor, capital, and technology must be most effective and efficient uses of those four elements, and this must be communicated effectively to the public. Economic development emphasis, ensure public buy-in, continuing engagement, communication, approval with a long-term perspective, more robust public involvement. Any clarification? Okay. Plans must consider the concerns of citizens and the character of their local communities in order to gain support from the electorate. The big issue, this may be very similar in wording to something we had earlier, appropriately so. Whatever is done to increase population density, transportation, the different communities want to ensure it doesn't change or destroy the community atmosphere they bought into. Major issue in any plan. Have to get citizens to buy in order to get funding. If you can't gain support of the majority of the population due to concerns about community, then the plan will not be implemented or you may lose at the ballot box. Examples, speeches and community concerns due to high rises, encourage the use of professional and personal background to lend authority to assertions and argumentation. So considering the concerns of citizens and the character of their local community. Any clarification? Okay, use a strategic approach to prioritize projects that enhance regional connectivity, inclusive of emerging technologies. Any clarification? Okay, equitable division of cost. Each jurisdiction should be treated equitably and inclusively, based upon population, role, and economic strength, while breaking down silos among staff and elected officials in a simple manner. Economic, land use, and transportation. Equity and fairness, everyone in the region needs a voice. Communities of concern must not be left out. Representation of rural communities, equitable and efficient for all communities. Any clarification? Okay. Access to the agency, conversation, and information. Relative to technology, social media can help with this. Technology and social media can help with this. Neutral rotating sites, satellites. Presumably satellite sites. Any clarification needed there? Okay. And politically acceptable and implementable strategies and plans. Any clarification? Okay. So, polling is open. Would anyone like a little more time to make their selections? You need more time? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands, so going once, twice, closed. Okay, pretty close spread among the top items on this one. The top vote getter was number 3 with 18%. Multimodalism, or top polling item, I should say. I want to emphasize this is not a vote and not a decision. Number 3, multimodalism, use a transparent process to develop technically sound, cost-feasible, and market-driven initiatives that include revitalization of existing infrastructure with flexible technology improvements that include all modes. There was a tie for the next place with 16%, numbers 2 and 7. Number 2, a long-term view of planning objectives and goals. Short-term decisions should support long-term goals and objectives, sustainable growth financially into the future, financial accountability over the long run, the need for a consensus of what a sustainable system is. And then number 7, equitable division of cost. Each jurisdiction should be treated equitably and inclusively based upon population, role and economic strength, while breaking down silos among staff and elected officials in a simple manner: economic, land use, and transportation. Equity and fairness. Everyone in the region needs a voice. Communities of concern must not be left out. Representation of rural communities. Equitable and efficient for all communities. So we came out of this with 6 principles. The groups were not limited to their topics in developing the principles. As I listen to these, I think there are lots of themes in common between these and the outcomes. It is all input that will help the study team understand, in part, what examples in other parts of the country to look at, in part, what options to look at, and in part, importantly, sort of the criteria that are in your minds as you think about what's a good outcome and a good recommendation. And you often hear about needing input early and often. This is early. It's good. The study hasn't started, and you've had a good half day of conversation about essentially what constitute criteria for good outcomes. The outcomes and benefits you want, the guiding principles that will help you get there. So in a moment, we'll turn to, I think, Ray to tell us where the study goes, but in the meantime...
Great, thanks, Raphael. And so all of your information will be captured in this robust document we call a real-time record. You've just taken a pass at the top ideas as we've discussed them. Joyce, who you cannot see, she has been capturing play-by-play all of the wisdom in this room through the plenary process. So that will be in the real-time record, so stay tuned for that. And then Jonathan has been capturing a different type of visual, kind of demonstrating the top priorities you've shared today. So I'm going to ask Jonathan, and we will have a high-resolution image of this, actually in full color. So he's going to take this to finish artwork overnight, and it will be in full color. So stay tuned for that. But Jonathan, can you please share the vision mural?
Yes. It's coming. You can't talk in art mode, and you can't do art in talk mode, so I'm switching to talk mode. We wanted to come up with a visual that reflects the future items and issues that we're going to have to deal with. This word multimodal was used about quite a bit, so I wanted to make sure that I added a visual or visualized what that would look like, and basically dealing with the traditional issues of or traditional buckets of transportation. But just like we talked about technology earlier, there's some things that didn't exist a decade ago or 2 decades ago, so I thought, well, there might be some issues that we may have to deal with that don't exist now, that are coming about now. So I in the center, I put the flying car. Like, what are you going to do with a flying car? Like, is it going to be highways, skyways, aerial delivery vehicles, issues that you may have to deal with. So along with that, bringing out the issues of, whatever we design and deal with, we've got to deal with the quality of life issues, being able to walk, bike, while dealing with those future buckets of challenges that we will have to deal with.
Also coming up with something that has a regional perspective with a global vision, you know, a world-class multimodal system. So in the red items, you'll find some of the keywords that we talked about with the 4 buckets that we've highlighted. So.
Okay, I'm going to hand it back to Whit in just a moment to wrap up. In the meantime, though, who does not have a meeting evaluation any longer? Tina, do you want to give me half of them? We'll get these to you while Whit is telling us where we go from here.
Well, I gotta say, I'm really blown away with the level of dialogue and interaction that everybody had. So give yourselves a hand, because that was fantastic. Great presentation. Okay. You know, so you're probably wondering where we go from here, how we take your comments into account. And we are going to be, first of all, sharing all this input with the folks who may be interested in pursuing that research project, best practices project, so that they have the input and value of all these comments. So that will be first and foremost. The second thing is we have your contact information. We're not going to let you go and fade away into the night. So what we're probably going to end up doing is setting up some sort of common platform, such as a web page or Facebook page or something like that. And so we will send that back out to you and let you know how you can keep track of the study process. You can share your comments and thoughts. And of course, you can always reach out to any one of the NPOs that may represent where you live or work or operate, and let us know of your interest, and we'll keep you involved in that. We'll certainly post updates and steps as we go along. But I want to encourage you to stay connected, keep aware of the principles that we identified here, because we'll use those to really look at what's working well across the country. What obstacles have they overcome to address these issues, and what would they change if they had a chance to go back and change some of the things that they worked out? One thing I found is that the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence, so we need to delve deep and look under the hood and make sure we understand what's working and what's not working in other areas, so we can benefit from those lessons learned and that knowledge. But I want to thank you all for being here today. It's been really helpful just wandering around the room. I was really inspired by the open dialogue and the respect that everybody showed to different ideas that you may not personally hold, but that you understand other people have. And so thank you very much for doing that. And with that, I think you have the afternoon free, unless there's anything else we need to say. All right, get back to work, go check your email. Thank you, everybody.